What changes when every member of a military alliance reaches a spending benchmark that many had failed to meet for over a decade? And what does that signal about the direction of global security? In 2025, all NATO allies met the 2% of GDP defense spending target for the first time since it was set in 2014, marking a measurable shift in military investment across Europe and Canada. This video examines what NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte's 2025 annual report reveals about evolving threats, shifting responsibilities within the alliance, and how these developments could reshape the balance between deterrence and escalation. The report, released in March 2026 by Mark Rutte, describes 2025 as a period defined by rapid changes in the security environment. Central to this assessment is the identification of Russia as the most direct and significant threat to Euro-Atlantic security. The report outlines a range of activities attributed to Russia, including airspace violations, cyber attacks, sabotage operations, political interference, and disinformation campaigns. These actions are presented not as isolated incidents, but as part of a broader pattern that has required NATO to reassess its readiness across multiple domains, including land, air, sea, cyber, and space. To understand how NATO reached this point, it is necessary to revisit the origins of the 2% spending target. In 2014, following Russia's annexation of Crimea, NATO members agreed to aim for defense spending equivalent to 2% of their national GDP. At the time, many European countries were significantly below this threshold, relying heavily on the United States for military capability and strategic deterrence. Over the following decade, progress was uneven, with several large economies, including Spain, Italy, Belgium, and Canada, consistently falling short of the target. The shift described in the 2025 report reflects a change in both perception and policy. European allies and Canada collectively increased defense spending by approximately 20% compared to 2024 levels. This increase represents not only higher budgets, but also a broader acknowledgement that the existing security environment requires greater national contributions. Mark Rutte indicated that there has been a clear change in mindset, with countries recognizing that reliance on U.S. military power alone is no longer sufficient for maintaining collective security. The role of the United States, particularly under President Donald Trump's administration, is highlighted as a significant factor in achieving this outcome. Rutte suggested that without sustained pressure and engagement from the U.S., it is unlikely that all NATO members would have reached the 2% target by the end of 2025. This reflects a long-standing dynamic within the alliance, where U.S. leadership has influenced both strategic direction and burden sharing among members. At the same time, the report underscores ongoing support for Ukraine. NATO members have continued to supply military equipment, reinforcing Ukraine's ability to sustain its defense against Russia. This support is part of a broader effort to maintain regional stability and deter further escalation. The continuation of these supply flows indicates that NATO's involvement, while indirect, remains a critical component of the conflict's trajectory. The report also addresses concerns related to Iran, particularly its missile program, and the broader issue of nuclear proliferation. NATO maintains its position opposing Iran's acquisition of nuclear weapons and supports efforts by the United States to limit Iran's capabilities in this area. Rutte noted that certain operations were conducted with limited prior consultation among allies due to the need for operational secrecy. While this approach may have been necessary to prevent information leaks, it also created challenges for coordination, as European allies required additional time to organize their responses. In parallel, the report highlights efforts by several countries to maintain the security of global sea lanes. Nations including the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Germany, Japan, and the Netherlands have coordinated actions to ensure the continued flow of maritime trade. This reflects the interconnected nature of modern security, where disruptions in one region can have immediate economic consequences worldwide. If current trends continue, one possible outcome is a more balanced and capable NATO alliance. In this scenario, increased defense spending leads to enhanced military readiness, improved coordination, and a stronger deterrent effect against potential adversaries. The redistribution of responsibility within the alliance could reduce dependence on the United States while maintaining overall cohesion. This would represent a structural shift in how NATO operates, with greater emphasis on collective contribution rather than centralized capability. If, however, increased spending does not translate into effective coordination or strategic clarity, a different outcome could emerge. Higher budgets alone do not guarantee improved security. Without alignment on priorities, investments could become fragmented, reducing the overall effectiveness of the alliance. In this case, the appearance of strength might not correspond to actual operational capability, potentially weakening deterrence. A third scenario involves heightened tension, as increased military investment is interpreted by adversaries as a sign of escalation rather than defense. In this context, actions intended to enhance security could contribute to a cycle of reciprocal measures, increasing the risk of confrontation. This dynamic has historical precedents, where arms buildups have sometimes led to greater instability rather than reduced risk. The broader geopolitical implications of these developments extend beyond NATO itself. The increase in defense spending reflects a wider trend in global security, where states are reassessing their military capabilities in response to evolving threats. This includes not only traditional military challenges, but also hybrid threats such as cyber operations and information warfare. The emphasis on multi-domain readiness indicates that future conflicts are expected to involve a combination of conventional and non-conventional elements. At the same time, the report highlights the complexity of alliance management in a changing environment. Balancing national interests with collective goals requires continuous negotiation and adaptation. The need for secrecy in certain operations, as noted by Rutte, illustrates the tension between operational effectiveness and alliance transparency. Managing this balance will be critical for maintaining trust among members. What emerges from the 2025 annual report is a picture of an alliance in transition. The achievement of the 2% spending target is a measurable milestone, but it is only one aspect of a broader transformation. The effectiveness of this shift will depend on how resources are allocated, how strategies are coordinated, and how external challenges are addressed. The key factor to watch is whether increased investment leads to sustained improvements in capability and coordination. The relationship between spending and security is not automatic. It requires deliberate planning and execution. As the security environment continues to evolve, NATO's ability to adapt will determine its role in shaping the balance between stability and conflict in the years ahead.